The massive gates of Kithara Prime's main spaceport opened with a sound like thunder. Steam poured out from the landing bay as Ambassador Sarah Chen stepped onto the metal platform. She was small compared to everything around her. The ceiling stretched up so high she could barely see it. The walls were covered in scratches and burn marks from weapons that could destroy entire buildings. Sarah looked around at the creatures waiting for her. They were nothing like humans. The Zeltharans stood 12 feet tall with thick armor covering their bodies. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light. Sharp teeth filled their mouths when they spoke. Behind them were the Kreks, who looked like giant spiders made of metal. Their 8 legs clicked against the floor as they moved. The Vorthak floated in the air, their tentacles moving like snakes around their bulky bodies. All of them were staring at Sarah and her small team of humans. Some were laughing. Others were making sounds that might have been laughter in their own languages. "So this is what Earth sends us?" said Warlord Thax, the leader of the Zeltharans. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. "These tiny pink things want to make trade deals with the rulers of Kithara Prime?" The other aliens laughed louder. One of the Kreks moved closer to Sarah, its metal legs making sharp sounds on the floor. It leaned down until its face was only inches from hers. She could smell oil and death on its breath. "I could step on you by accident, little human," it said in broken English. "How do you plan to survive in our world?" Sarah did not step back. She had trained for this moment for years. Earth needed these trade agreements. The galaxy was full of resources that humans needed to grow and expand, but every species they had met so far treated them like they were nothing special. "We came here to talk business," Sarah said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We have things you want. You have things we need. That is how trade works." More laughter filled the huge room. Warlord Thax walked over to Sarah. Each of his steps shook the floor. When he stopped in front of her, she had to look straight up to see his face. "You think you can trade with us as equals?" he asked. "Look around you, human. This is Kithara Prime. Only the strongest species in the galaxy can survive here. The air itself will kill most creatures in minutes. The plants hunt and eat anything they can catch. The storms can melt metal. The ground shakes from the footsteps of beasts the size of your Earth buildings." He pointed to the walls around them. Sarah could see that they were not just scratched. They were covered in marks from claws and teeth. Some of the scratches were so deep that her entire arm could fit inside them. "We have lived here for 300 years, Thax continued. "We conquered this world by being the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Every day we fight to stay alive. Every night we sleep knowing that tomorrow might be our last day. This makes us strong. This makes us worthy of respect." He looked down at Sarah again. "But you? You come from a world of soft grass and gentle rain. Your skin is thin. Your teeth are flat. You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. You are prey animals pretending to be hunters." The other aliens made sounds of agreement. Sarah could feel them moving closer, forming a circle around her small team. There were only 10 humans in total. They all looked very small and weak compared to the creatures around them. "However," Warlord Thax said, raising one of his massive hands, "we are not without mercy. We will give you a chance to prove that humans deserve our respect." The room became quiet. Sarah waited for him to continue. "There is a place on our world called the Crimson Wastes," Thax said. "It is the most dangerous place on Kithara Prime. Even we do not go there unless we must. The Council of Species has decided to offer you a test." He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Survive in the Crimson Wastes for 30 days. If you can do this, we will consider your trade proposals. If you fail, if you die or run away, then humanity will be banned from this region of space forever. No trade, no deals, no contact. You will be marked as a weak species, unworthy of our time." Sarah felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her face calm. This was not what Earth had expected, but it was an opportunity. What exactly would we need to do in these crimson wastes? Simple, said one of the Kreks. Stay alive. Find food. Find water. Shelter yourselves from the acid storms. Avoid the hunting packs of razor plants. Try not to be eaten by the mega predators that call the wastes home. Oh, and one more thing, added Thax. We will be watching. Every moment will be recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone will see how the soft humans from Earth handle real danger. The aliens laughed again. Sarah realized this was not just a test. It was entertainment for them. They wanted to watch humans suffer and die for their amusement. Do you accept? Thax asked. Or will you return to your safe little world and admit that humans are too weak for the real galaxy? Sarah looked at her team. They were all watching her, waiting for her decision. She thought about Earth, about all the humans depending on these trade deals. She thought about the resources Cathara Prime could provide. Most importantly, she thought about the message this would send to every other species in the galaxy. We accept, she said. The aliens cheered and roared with approval. They were already imagining the entertainment they would get from watching humans die in horrible ways. But Sarah noticed something the aliens had missed. One member of her team had not looked worried when she accepted the challenge. Captain Marcus Rodriguez stood quietly near the back of the group. His face showed no fear, no concern. Instead, there was something else in his eyes, something that looked almost like anticipation. The test would begin in 3 days. Sarah wondered if the aliens knew what they had just unleashed. The transport ship dropped the humans at the edge of the crimson wastes, just as the first sun was rising. Sarah Chen stepped out of the landing craft and immediately felt the difference. The air was thick and hot. It tasted like metal and something rotten. Every breath burned her lungs a little. Around them stretched endless red sand dunes. Strange rock formations twisted up from the ground like frozen screams. In the distance, Sarah could see forests of black trees that seemed to move even though there was no wind. The sky above was the color of old blood. Welcome to your new home for the next 30 days, said the Zeltharan pilot through the ship's speakers. Try not to die too quickly. The galaxy is watching. The ship lifted off and disappeared into the red sky. Sarah looked at her team. They had brought basic survival equipment, some food, and water for a few days. After that, they would need to find everything themselves. Spread out, Sarah ordered. Look for shelter. We need to get out of the open before the first storm hits. They had studied Cathara Prime for months before coming here. The Crimson Wastes had acid storms every few days. The rain could eat through metal in minutes. Finding cover was their first priority. Dr. James Park, their scientist, was already taking readings with his instruments. The radiation levels are high but not deadly, he reported. The atmospheric pressure is about twice what we're used to on Earth. The temperature is rising fast. It will be over 50 degrees Celsius by midday. Sarah nodded. They had expected this. What they had not expected was the sound. At first, it was just a low humming in the air. Then it got louder. Soon they realized it was coming from the Black Forest. It sounded like singing, but wrong somehow. Like voices that were almost human, but not quite. What is that? Asked Lisa Wong, their communications officer. Probably the razor plants, said Captain Rodriguez. He was the only one who seemed completely calm. They use sound to attract prey. As if his words were a signal, something moved in the forest. The black trees shifted and bent toward the humans. Thick vines began creeping out from between the trunks. The singing got louder and more urgent. Move, Rodriguez ordered. Now! The team grabbed their gear and ran toward a cluster of red rocks about a mile away. Behind them, the singing changed to something that sounded angry. The vines moved faster, reaching across the sand toward them. They reached the rocks just as the first drops of rain began to fall. The water hit the sand and immediately started smoking. Where it touched the metal parts of their equipment, it began to eat away at the surface. "Inside!" Sarah shouted, pointing to a cave opening between the rocks. They all crowded into the small space just as the storm hit in full force. Outside, the acid rain poured down like a waterfall. They could hear it hissing and bubbling as it dissolved everything it touched. "Well," said Park, checking his equipment, "we survived our first hour." But the celebration was short. Their water containers had been damaged by the acid rain. Half of their food supplies were ruined. Worse, their communications equipment was not working properly. "Can you fix it?" Sarah asked Wong. "Maybe," Wong replied, looking at the melted circuits. "But it will take time, and I need parts we don't have." On the viewing screens across the galaxy, aliens were already laughing. The humans looked scared and helpless. Their equipment was failing. They were trapped in a cave while death rained from the sky. "Look at them," said Warlord Thax to his officers. "They cannot even protect their basic supplies from a simple acid storm. This will be over in 3 days." But Rodriguez was not looking scared. While the others worked on their damaged equipment, he was studying the cave walls. He found something interesting. "Sarah," he called softly, "come look at this." On the wall were scratches. They looked like claw marks, but they were arranged in patterns. Rodriguez pointed to them. "These aren't random," he said. "Something intelligent made these marks, something that used this cave for shelter." "What kind of something?" Sarah asked. "I'm not sure yet, but whatever it was, it survived here long enough to develop a system. These marks show the timing of storms, the direction of safe water sources, even what plants are safe to eat." Sarah stared at the scratches. "You can read all that from these marks?" "Pattern recognition is part of my training," Rodriguez said simply. Over the next few days, things got worse before they got better. The singing plants attacked twice more. Each time, the team had to run to different shelter. Their food ran out on the 4th day. Park got sick from drinking contaminated water and could barely stand. The aliens watching from orbit were taking bets on which human would die first. The broadcasts were being sent across the galaxy as entertainment. Most species agreed that humans were proving to be exactly as weak as expected. But Rodriguez had been busy. He had found more caves with more markings. He had begun to understand the patterns. On the 6th day, he led the team to a hidden spring of clean water. On the 7th day, he showed them which of the strange red fruits were safe to eat. "How do you know all this?" Park asked. He was feeling better after drinking clean water and eating real food. "The previous inhabitants left instructions," Rodriguez explained. "They learned how to survive here, and they wrote it down for others to follow." "But who were they?" Wong asked. Rodriguez pointed to some of the newer scratches on the cave walls. Sarah looked closely and saw something that made her breath catch. Mixed in with the alien markings were symbols she recognized. Numbers and letters. Human writing. "Humans have been here before," Rodriguez said quietly. "Recently." The implications hit Sarah immediately. Earth had sent other missions to Cathara Prime. Missions that were never mentioned in the official records. But if humans had been here before, why had they left? And why was Earth pretending this was their first contact? On the 8th day, the team found something else. Hidden in a deep cave was a small cache of supplies, human supplies, advanced equipment that Sarah had never seen before. There was also a message, written in English. "If you are reading this, then the test has begun. What you do next will determine the future of humanity in this galaxy. Trust Ghost. He will know what to do. Signed, Colonel Sarah Mitchell, Earth Special Operations Command." Sarah stared at the message. Earth Special Operations Command was not part of the diplomatic service. She had never heard of Colonel Mitchell. And who was Ghost? She turned to ask Rodriguez, but he was gone. She found him outside the cave, standing perfectly still in the red sand. He was looking up at the bloody sky with an expression she had never seen before. "Captain Rodriguez?" she called. He turned to look at her. For the first time since they had arrived, he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Actually," he said, "my call sign is Ghost." High above them, in the orbital stations where the aliens were watching their entertainment feeds, something changed. The humans had stopped running and hiding. They had stopped looking scared. Instead, they were looking up at the sky like they were waiting for something. Warlord Thax leaned forward in his command chair. "What are they doing?" On the screen, Ghost was speaking into a device that had not been damaged by the acid storms. His words were calm and clear. "Control, this is Ghost. Package has been delivered. Request permission to initiate Phase 2. The response came back immediately. "Permission granted. Show them what humans can really do." Ghost looked at Ambassador Chen for a long moment. She could see that everything about him had changed. His posture was different. His eyes were sharper. Even the way he breathed seemed more controlled. "I think we need to talk," Sarah said. "Yes, we do," Ghost replied. He gestured for her to follow him deeper into the cave system. But not here. Too many ears listening. The other team members watched them go. Sarah noticed that two of them, Dr. Park and Lisa Wong, did not look surprised by Ghost's transformation. They looked like they had been waiting for this moment. Ghost led Sarah through a narrow passage to a hidden chamber deep underground. The walls were covered with more human markings, but these were different. They were technical diagrams, maps, and what looked like military plans. "How long has Earth been planning this?" Sarah asked. 3 years, Ghost answered. He activated a device that projected a holographic map of Kythera Prime in the air between them. "Ever since we made first contact with the Zeltharan hegemony. But the diplomatic mission was my idea. I spent 2 years convincing Earth Command to approve it." Ghost smiled grimly. "No, Ambassador. Earth Command spent 2 years convincing you it was your idea. They needed someone genuine, someone who really believed in peaceful contact. The aliens had to believe this was a real diplomatic mission." Sarah felt cold despite the heat of the cave. "So everything was a lie?" "Not everything. Earth really does want trade agreements. We really do need the resources these species control. But we learned early that the galaxy doesn't respect weakness. Every species we've contacted has treated us like we're nothing special. Some have refused to talk to us at all. Others have offered us deals that were basically slavery contracts." Ghost touched the hologram, and it zoomed in on the Crimson Wastes. Red dots appeared across the map. "The Zeltharans think they're the apex predators of this region," Ghost continued. "They use fear and strength to control 47 different star systems. They've conquered 12 species completely. 3 species have gone extinct rather than submit to them. And you think starting a war will solve this? I think showing them what humans can really do will prevent a war," Ghost said. "The galaxy needs to understand that we're not prey. We're not weak. We're not going to accept being treated like inferior beings." Sarah stared at the map. "What exactly is your mission?" "Demonstrate human capabilities. Show every species watching these broadcasts that they've made a serious mistake. Make it clear that Earth is not asking for permission to join galactic civilization. We're announcing that we're already here. And if innocent people get hurt." Ghost's expression hardened. "The Zeltharans have killed billions of innocent people across their empire. They destroy entire worlds for entertainment. They breed slave species for food. There are no innocent Zeltharans, Ambassador." Before Sarah could respond, an alarm started echoing through the cave. Ghost immediately became alert, pulling out weapons she had not known he was carrying. "What is that?" Sarah asked. Motion sensors. Something big is coming this way. Ghost spoke into his communication device. All units, report status. Voices responded immediately. Sarah realized with shock that she recognized them. Dr. Park's voice came through clearly. Reaper here. Northern perimeter secure. Lisa Wong followed. Viper reporting. Eastern approach clear. Even their pilot, who Sarah had thought was just a transport specialist, checked in. Falcon here. Air support ready for deployment. They're all soldiers, Sarah whispered. Former U.S. Special Operations, Ghost confirmed. We've been training for interstellar combat for 5 years. We're the first unit of what Earth Command calls the American Boogeymen. The what? It's what enemy forces used to call American Special Operations soldiers. Someone you never saw coming. Someone who appeared from nowhere and destroyed everything you thought you knew about warfare. The name seemed appropriate for our first galactic mission. The ground began to shake. Through cracks in the cave walls, Sarah could see movement outside. Something massive was approaching. Multiple massive things. What are they? She asked. Ghost checked his instruments. Zeltharan heavy assault vehicles. Looks like our hosts have decided to end the test early. He spoke into his radio again. All units, they're cheating. Rules of engagement are now weapons-free. What does that mean? Sarah asked. It means we stop pretending to be helpless diplomats. Ghost led Sarah to a concealed opening in the cave wall. Outside, she could see the Zeltharan war machines. They were enormous metal beasts that walked on 6 legs each. Weapons covered their surfaces. They moved across the red sand like mechanical predators. The broadcasts show that we're supposed to be alone and helpless, Ghost explained. But the Zeltharans are bringing military force. That breaks their own rules. So, what do we do? We show them why humans conquered their own Deathworld so completely that they forgot it was ever dangerous. Ghost pulled out a device Sarah had never seen before. It looked like a normal communications unit, but when he activated it, the display showed something impossible. Satellite positions, orbital mechanics. Targeting data for weapons platforms. How do you have satellite access? Sarah asked. We don't just have satellites, Ambassador. We have a full battle group in stealth position 3 astronomical units out from this system. The diplomatic ship that brought us here was just a taxi. Our real transportation is waiting for orders. The Zeltharan machines were getting closer. Sarah could hear their weapons charging up. On the broadcasting feeds being sent across the galaxy, it looked like the humans were trapped and about to be slaughtered. This will start a war, Sarah said. No, Ghost replied. This will end the possibility of war before it begins. He spoke into his communicator with calm authority. Control, this is Ghost. The test has been compromised by hostile action. Zeltharan forces are deploying military assets against civilian diplomatic personnel. Request permission to initiate full operational response. The reply came back immediately from somewhere far above them. Permission granted, Ghost. Show them what the Boogeymen can do. Ghost smiled and looked up at the red sky. All units, execute Plan Omega. Let's introduce the galaxy to human warfare. Across the crimson wastes, 6 humans who had spent days pretending to be scared survivors suddenly stood up straight. Equipment they had hidden began appearing from concealed locations. Weapons that could destroy buildings materialized from what had looked like damaged supplies. In the orbital stations, the aliens watching their entertainment stopped laughing. Something was very wrong with their feeds. The humans were not running or hiding anymore. Instead, they were taking positions like trained soldiers. Warlord Thax leaned forward in his command chair. What are they doing? On the main screen, Ambassador Chen stood next to the human called Ghost. But he didn't look like a diplomat anymore. He looked like something much more dangerous. Broadcasting to all galactic networks, Ghost said, looking directly into the camera. This is Captain Marcus Rodriguez, United States Space Command, speaking for the planet Earth. You wanted to test humanity. Your test is about to begin. High above Cathara Prime, something uncloaked in the darkness between the stars. Something that had been waiting and watching. Something that was much larger than any ship the galaxy had ever seen. The real test was about to start. But it would not be a test of human survival. It would be a test of whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had become. The first Zeltharan war machine died before its crew understood what was happening. One moment it was advancing across the red sand toward the human position. The next moment it was sinking into the ground as the sand beneath it turned to liquid. What just happened? Warlord Thax demanded from his command center. On the screen, Ghost was standing on top of a rock formation with some kind of device in his hands. Localized gravitational manipulation, he said calmly into the broadcast feed. Your machines are heavy. Sand is not a stable foundation when you change the local gravity field. The second war machine tried to back away, but Ghost was already moving. Sarah watched in amazement as he jumped from rock to rock with impossible speed. His equipment was clearly more advanced than anything the aliens had seen. "Reaper, execute Thunder Run," Ghost commanded into his radio. Dr. Park, who Sarah now knew was called Reaper, emerged from behind a sand dune half a mile away. But he was not the same nervous scientist who had been testing air samples a week ago. He moved like a predator, and the weapon in his hands made a sound like thunder when it fired. The energy beam cut the second war machine in half. The explosion lit up the red sky and sent burning metal flying in all directions. "Impossible," Thax whispered. "Human weapons cannot be that powerful." "Viper, show them what we learned from their acid storms," Ghost ordered. Lisa Wong appeared on a ridge overlooking the third war machine. She was carrying what looked like a normal backpack, but when she activated it, a stream of liquid shot out and hit the Zeltharan vehicle. The liquid was not water. It was concentrated acid, somehow collected and weaponized from the very storms that had nearly killed them on their first day. The war machine's armor began dissolving. The crew inside screamed as their vehicle melted around them. They tried to escape, but the acid spread too quickly. "You're using our own world against us," Thax said with growing horror. "We're using everything against you," Ghost replied. "That's what humans do. We adapt. We learn. We turn every environment into our weapon." The fourth war machine fired its main cannon at Ghost's position. The energy blast was powerful enough to vaporize a building, but Ghost was no longer there. He had moved faster than the alien weapons could track. "Falcon, light them up," Ghost commanded. Their pilot, who had been hiding in what looked like a damaged supply container, suddenly rose into the air. He was wearing some kind of flying suit that made no sound as it moved. The weapons built into his armor were small but incredibly precise. He targeted the war machine's sensor array first, blinding it. Then he hit its weapon systems, disabling its ability to fight back. "Now watch this," Ghost said to the galaxy-wide audience. He raised his hand and made a whistling sound. From the black forest of singing plants, something responded. The razor plants that had tried to hunt the humans on their first day were coming. But they were not hunting humans anymore. They were flowing like a green tide toward the blinded war machine. "You tamed them," Sarah whispered. "We fed them," Ghost corrected. Turns out the razor plants really liked the taste of Zeltharan metal. Who knew? The plants swarmed over the war machine like hungry animals. Their acid sap ate through the armor while their thorns found every weak point. The crew inside had no chance to escape. The fifth war machine tried to retreat, but Reaper was waiting for it. He had set up something that looked like a normal rock formation, but when the alien vehicle came near, the rocks exploded upward. They were not rocks at all. They were magnetic mines designed to look like natural stone. The explosion flipped the massive war machine onto its back. Its crew was trapped inside as its own weight crushed the escape hatches shut. "The last one is yours, Ambassador," Ghost said to Sarah. "Mine?" Sarah stared at him. "I'm not a soldier." "No, but you're the diplomat. This is about sending a message." Ghost handed her a small device. It looked like a simple remote control. "Press the button," he said. Sarah looked at the last war machine. It had stopped advancing and was trying to call for backup from orbit. Its crew was panicking, sending desperate messages to their commanders. "What will happen if I press this?" she asked. "You'll show the galaxy that even human diplomats are dangerous when you threaten them." Sarah thought about Earth. She thought about all the humans depending on these trade negotiations. She thought about every alien species that had dismissed humanity as weak and worthless. She pressed the button. The last war machine simply disappeared. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. In its place was a perfect sphere of empty air about 50 feet across. "Localized space-time displacement," Ghost explained to the stunned alien audience. "We moved it about 3 inches to the left and 1 second into the past. The overlap with its previous position caused a temporal paradox that deleted it from this timeline." Across the galaxy, every species watching the broadcast fell silent. The humans had not just survived an assault by Zeltharan war machines. They had destroyed them easily, almost casually. Worse, they had done it using weapons and techniques that no one had ever seen before. "How long have humans had this technology?" Thax demanded. "We've always had it," Ghost replied. "The question is not what humans can build. The question is what we choose to use." On the screens, the 6 humans were standing calmly among the wreckage of the most advanced war machines in Zeltharan service. They did not look tired or stressed. They looked like they had just finished a light training exercise. "The test is over," Ghost announced, "but not the way you planned. You tested human survival skills. Now let us test yours." He gestured to the sky above them. Something was becoming visible through the red atmosphere. Something massive beyond imagination. "Meet the UES Retribution," Ghost said. "One of Earth's newest diplomatic vessels." The ship was the size of a small city. Its hull was covered in weapons that made the Zeltharan war machines look like toys. As it settled into orbit above Cathara Prime, its shadow covered half the continent. "How many ships like this does Earth have?" Thax asked quietly. "That's classified," Ghost replied with a smile. "But I can tell you that the Retribution is just here for the diplomatic mission. Our actual military is elsewhere, doing other things." The implications hit every alien viewer simultaneously. If this was Earth's diplomatic escort, what did their actual military look like? "The trade negotiations will now resume," Ambassador Chen announced, her voice carrying new authority. "But the terms have changed. Earth is not asking for membership in galactic civilization. We are informing you that we have already taken our place." She looked directly into the broadcast camera. "Any species that wishes to trade with humanity is welcome to submit proposals to our diplomatic corps. Any species that chooses to threaten humanity should remember what you have seen here today." Ghost stepped up beside her. "The American Boogeymen are always watching. We go where others cannot follow. We appear where others do not expect us, and we have a very long memory for those who try to hurt our people." In his command center, Warlord Thax slowly reached for the communication controls. His hands were shaking as he prepared to surrender unconditionally to the species he had mocked as weak prey animals. The galaxy would never make that mistake again. 3 months after the events at Cathara Prime, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the largest conference room on the planet. The same aliens who had mocked humanity were now sitting across from her at a negotiating table. But everything had changed. Warlord Thax no longer wore his battle armor. Instead, he wore the simple robes of a diplomatic representative. His voice was quiet and respectful when he spoke. "Earth's terms for the mining rights are acceptable," he said carefully. "We agree to provide rare metals at the prices you have specified." Sarah nodded and made notes on her tablet. The prices were extremely favorable to Earth. 3 months ago, the Zeltharans would have laughed at such terms. Today, they were grateful to be offered any deal at all. "What about the Krex territories?" Sarah asked. The spider-like alien representative clicked its metal legs nervously. "We have prepared the star charts you requested. All Krex trade routes are now open to human ships. We ask only for safe passage guarantees for our own vessels." "Granted," Sarah said, "as long as your ships do not interfere with human operations." She looked around the table at representatives from 47 different species. Each one was eager to sign trade agreements with Earth. Each one was terrified of what might happen if they refused. The broadcasts from the Crimson Wastes had been watched by every intelligent species in this part of the galaxy. The footage of Ghost and his team destroying Zeltharan war machines had been analyzed by alien military experts across hundreds of worlds. The conclusions were always the same. Humanity possessed technology and capabilities that made them potentially the most dangerous species anyone had ever encountered. "There is one more item to discuss," said the Vorthak representative, its tentacles twitching with nervousness. "Our intelligence networks have detected human ships in 43 different star systems. They appear to be conducting their own diplomatic missions." Sarah smiled. Earth believes in making friends wherever possible. What she did not say was that each of those missions included teams like Ghosts. Across the galaxy, the American Boogeymen were introducing themselves to every major power. Some meetings were going smoothly, others were not. "The hegemony of Blades refused to meet with human diplomats last week," the Vorthak continued. "They said humans were beneath their notice." "Were?" Sarah asked, noting the past tense. "Their capital world went dark 3 days ago. All communications ceased. When our scouts investigated, they found the planet undamaged, but completely deserted." Every member of the hegemony government had simply vanished. Sarah made a note on her tablet. The hegemony of Blades had a reputation for capturing and enslaving other species for gladiator fights. She was not surprised that Ghost's colleagues had decided to make a strong impression. "I'm sure they'll turn up eventually," she said diplomatically. The Krex representative spoke up. "There are rumors that human ships have been seen near the consortium worlds. The consortium controls the energy markets for this entire sector." "Rumors can be so unreliable," Sarah replied. She did not mention that the consortium had been using their energy monopoly to starve entire planets into submission. Earth had decided that such business practices were unacceptable. Her communication device chimed softly. She looked down at the message and smiled. "Good news," she announced to the table. "The consortium has just agreed to open their energy markets to free competition. They've also agreed to provide humanitarian aid to the worlds they've been boycotting." The alien representatives exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand that humanity's diplomatic methods were very effective. "How many ships does Earth have?" asked Thak quietly. "That's classified military information," Sarah replied. "But I can tell you that we've been building for much longer than most people realize." This was true. While the galaxy had been ignoring Earth as a primitive backwater world, human shipyards had been working in asteroid belts and hidden moons throughout human space. The fleet that was now spreading across the galaxy represented decades of secret preparation. "What does Earth want from us?" asked the Vorthak. "Peace," Sarah answered honestly. "Trade, mutual respect. The same things we offered when we first made contact." "And if we cannot provide these things?" Sarah's expression became colder. "Then you'll be visited by people who are much less diplomatic than I am." The meeting continued for several more hours. By the end, trade agreements had been signed with every species represented. Earth had secured access to resources, technology, and trade routes that would fuel human expansion for centuries. As the alien representatives filed out of the conference room, Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. 3 months ago, these same beings had treated humans like amusing pets. Now they competed with each other to offer Earth the best deals. Her communication device chimed again. This time it was a message from Ghost. "Package delivered to the Stellar Republic," his message read. "Government has agreed to dissolve their slave markets. They've also provided the locations of all missing human colonies from the past 50 years. The colonists are being returned to Earth space as we speak." Sarah smiled. The Stellar Republic had been one of the more difficult negotiations. They had insisted that their internal affairs were none of Earth's business. Ghost had apparently convinced them otherwise. Another message followed. "Recommend full diplomatic contact with the Benevolent Alliance. They've been protecting refugee populations from the consortium's energy wars. Good people. They deserve our support." This was why Sarah respected Ghost despite his methods. He could be ruthless with enemies, but he also recognized allies worth protecting. A final message appeared on her screen. Phase 1 complete. All major powers in this sector have received Earth's message. Recommend beginning Phase 2 when you're ready. Sarah looked out the window at Kythera Prime's red sky. In the distance, she could see human ships landing at what had once been alien-only spaceports. Human scientists were working alongside alien researchers. Human merchants were setting up trade offices. The integration was happening faster than anyone had expected. Phase 2 would be even more ambitious. Earth had identified 12 other galactic sectors where human expansion would be beneficial. Each one was controlled by species that considered themselves apex predators. Each one was about to learn that they were wrong. Sarah opened a new communication channel and sent a message to Earth Command. "This is Ambassador Chen reporting from Kythera Prime. Phase 1 objectives achieved. All local powers have accepted Earth's terms. Request authorization to proceed with Phase 2. The reply came back within minutes. "Authorization granted. Congratulations, Ambassador. The American Boogeymen are already en route to their new targets. Ghost sends his regards." Sarah closed her tablet and walked to the window. Across the galaxy, in places where humanity had never been seen before, diplomatic ships were requesting permission to dock. Each ship carried representatives who seemed small and harmless. Each ship also carried soldiers who were anything but. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place, and for the first time in human history, Earth was setting the rules instead of following them. In the depths of space, ancient species that had ruled for millennia were about to discover what every predator learns eventually. There is always something higher on the food chain, that something had just introduced itself. Its name was humanity, and it had come to stay.